James, WUKY.
Good afternoon there, Governor. There is obviously still an appetite among Republicans to continue lowering the income tax and some different signals there on whether they might try to change the triggers or decrease by smaller percentages. Do you see any room for further reductions in our current economic situation? And if I could tack a second question on there, could you clarify whether Kentucky intends to give the USDA the names and immigration status of people receiving food benefits, and should Kentuckians prepare for another possible loss of SNAP benefits?
Yeah, Kentuckians aren't going to lose SNAP benefits. It would violate a court order that's out there. Let me just say this is a little bit bizarre because we've already litigated this and won. So it was last May, the Trump administration sent out what we believed was an unlawful order that we were going to have to turn over all of the private personal information of all our Kentuckians that are on SNAP. Information that the federal government isn't entitled to under law. And just think about how hard we all protect our personal information. It used to be that Republicans didn't think that the federal government ought to have all of your personal information at any time for any reason. And Josh, the stated reason was not to detect fraud. It was about immigration and wanting to use the information for immigration purposes. So we went to court, and since September, I believe, we have had an injunction where the court said, no, that's unlawful. The law doesn't allow you to require states to turn over that information. They didn't, I don't think they're currently appealing that, so it's in place. But last week we get a letter, and it doesn't threaten our SNAP benefits. It says, well, we now have these extra security protocols. So will you turn over that information? And if not, tell us why by this date. So we, as a group of states, were working on responding to that when in the televised cabinet meeting, which is something, Brooke Rollins comes out and says, oh, we're going to cut them off if they don't send us the information by that date. You know, I guess everybody tries to puff up and look strong during a cabinet meeting, but they hadn't even threatened that at that point in time, and that would violate a court order. So I'm sorry that the theater of the Trump administration and everybody somehow wanting to make threats to take food off of people's tables is so popular for this Trump administration. But that is not what the letter to us said. We're willing to go back to court. We've won this before, and we'll win it again. But this is one more example of how the Trump administration is willing to let people starve for political purposes. It's just wrong. They ought to knock it off. And then